John Locke was the inventor of the lock in 1705. He was born in 1632 and he died in 1704. There are many unsolved mysteries surrounding John Locke, and most of them have gone unsolved, including his early childhood. John Locke was like any other kid in the block. Nobody even knew that he was gifted and was bound for the invention of the lock in 1705. He did what any other normal kid would do, like climb a fence or plow the fields. One of his jobs was to go in the mines and to find certain rocks and bring them to his employer. While doing so, he found certain rocks that made him happy. In this picture, he has a rock and he looks like he is smashing something. This just goes to show how much he was invested into locks by smashing things open with rocks. Overall, John Locke's childhood was normal, but that was soon to change when he became middle-aged and went to college. During college, he wasn't a kid anymore. He couldn't plow the fields or do anything that any other kid should do. He had to learn, but he was gifted, so he was really good in school. So much so that one of the unsolved problems that the teacher could never solve was solved by John Locke. This took many tries, but he eventually did. Over time, he figured more things out and he wrote them on the board. You can see his first drawings of the lock on the board. After solving the problem on the board, he was immediately given the degree of psychology because he was so smart and gifted. Soon after, John Locke's associate in Mansfield, John Key, earned his degree in philosophy. They soon teamed up and they worked together for many years. It is commonly assumed that John Locke and John Key were best friends, but in reality, they were just work friends. They didn't actually like each other on that level, and John Key had other plans. So instead of working on the key with John Locke, he worked on other such things like a map key or piano keys. John Key was sure to be successful, but John Locke, on the other hand, he was sad sometimes. He was so sad that he went to the piano to remember John Key. He was really sad. He was so sad that he went everywhere that he could to remember John Key. He even went to the main room of Mansfield and met his future wife, Mary Pick. Mary Pick was very beautiful in John Locke's eyes. She was so smart too. She was the inventor of the guitar pick. Even though John Locke was sad about John Key leaving, he was so happy now that he got married to Mary Pick. The wedding soon followed and all seemed very happy. John Key even took time off to support his work friend and visit the wedding. They were married now and all was good. Mary Pick became pregnant and had a baby. She was pregnant for a while before the baby came, but when it did, Mary Pick died. John Locke was sad once more, but now he wasn't in the place to be sad anymore. He had a responsibility with his child. He decided to name her Jane. Her full name was Jane Lockepick. They had a good relationship. For a while, that is. Once John Locke was once again consumed by his work with locks, he was not able to have a relationship with his child, John Locke made a decision to go to Alcatraz and finish what he started. Jane Lockepick was sad. John Locke was sad, but he didn't notice because he was too consumed with his work. Eventually, he made it to Alcatraz, a lone island, and he was finally able to concentrate on his work without the constant distractions of changing dirty diapers and being a father. He finally made the final lock, and it was so good that the man who invented prison actually wanted his lock to invent prison, so he invented jail and prison, like Alcatraz prison. John Locke, now knowing that his lock would work, went back to the Americas to spread the news and to sell his final product, the lock. Jane Lockepick, however, was not there when he got back to home. She was somewhere else, but he did not know where, until he found a letter on the ground that said where she was. She was at Mansfield, studying. Later, it was found out that she didn't go to Mansfield for the lock. She went to Mansfield for the exact opposite reason, lockpicking. Instead of solving an unsolvable problem, she unsolved an already solved problem, the lock. She didn't like the lock because of her father. John Locke believed that his lock was the best. Jane Lockepick disagreed. John Locke decided to make a deal with her. If he could lock himself in a room and she couldn't lockpick him out, then she was stupid and her invention sucked. After careful consideration, Jane Lockepick decided that this was a good idea, and she agreed to help with his deal. They got to the location where the bet would take place, and he decided that now was the time to lock himself in the room. He locked himself inside. The only visible lock on the outside was the door handle lock, and Jane Lockepick was ready to lockpick it, or so it seemed. John Locke was in for a surprise. Jane Lockepick turned away and left him. She left him in the dust. Now John Locke was in a sticky situation. He was locked in the room with his own lock. John Locke was sure to die, so the teacher of Mansfield decided it was his time to take action. He called up John Key on the phone because he knew that John Key was the only man capable of helping John Locke. Once John Key heard the news, he ran over as soon as possible and unlocked the door. Sadly, he was dead. Time went on though. The rocket was invented, the automobile was invented, the camera was invented, and the portal to the fifth dimension was invented by John Portal to the fifth dimension. What seemed to be a stroke of luck, a portal opened in front of John Key's eyes. He used the portal to the fifth dimension and went back in time a couple minutes or so that he could save John Locke, who was still locked in the room. He unlocked the door, freeing John Locke and securing his future. But Jane Lockepick saw something, and she realized that something was up. She saw a portal to the fifth dimension, but it had gone away. She pulled out her lockpicking tools and Locke picked the portal back open and went through it. She went back in time even before John Locke went to Mansfield. She found a student named Linus Yale Sr. She told him everything she knew about the lock. She knew a lot about this invention, and she passed down all her information to Linus Yale Sr. Linus Yale Sr. knew everything about the lock, and he was about to solve the unsolvable problem when John Locke came in the door. But he got there too late. Linus Yale Sr., he solved the unsolvable problem. John Locke was clearly upset, but he stayed enrolled in college and got his psychology degree anyways. Instead of inventing locks with his psychology degree, he decided to invent empiricism. He was sad about not inventing the lock. He was sad about not having a family. And he was sad about inventing empiricism. But he still had an assistant that fed him. The assistant fed him every day, but John Locke still got worse. It turned out that she was poisoning him. John Locke's final words were, "I actually like the lock," or something, "and I feel bad about inventing empiricism," or something like that. The exact words are not known. Overall, John Locke didn't invent the lock in 1705. Instead, he invented empiricism, which sucked.